My name is Chris Deed. I'm from the Environment Agency, and one of my roles is as eDoc Program Manager. And what I'd like to do over the next 20-25 minutes is give you an insight into eDoc, which I believe is the 21st century version of the paper waste transfer note. What I'm going to do is start off by giving a bit of an introduction to the waste duty of care and focus on some of the recent changes that have occurred, and then move, hopefully seamlessly, into eDoc. Also show you an animated video in relation to eDoc, show you who eDoc is for, what are the benefits, give you some of the details around the functionality, and also give you some feedback from users who are already using it. What I won't do is a live demonstration of the actual system here, but I'm on the stand over with CIWM. If you want to find me over the next couple of days, by all means, I'll give you a live demo there. So, just to provide some context, I suspect we're all well aware, duty of care, waste duty of care is covered by two primary sources of information. First is regulations and legislation, and second is the statutory codes of practice. And those are different between all four nations within the United Kingdom. The differences are fairly small scale. They tend to be based on historical, depending on when the latest version of the code of practice was issued. So, for example, in England, it's over 10 years old, so it's quite dated. The fundamental parts are covered within Section 34 of the Environmental Protection Act. And that effectively places a duty on anybody who produces waste, who holds onto waste, who transfers waste, who disposes of waste or treats it, or brokers waste. And then following from that, there are other requirements such as ensuring that nobody else contravenes Section 33, which is the illegal disposal or treatment of waste. And then there are other aspects such as ensuring prevention of ensuring that waste doesn't escape from his or her control. Also, that waste needs to be transferred to an authorised person, such as a registered waste management company, as a registered licence carrier, or alternatively somebody with a permit. The other aspect that is particularly relevant in relation to eDoc is to ensure that there is an adequate written description of the waste being transferred, and that is where eDoc comes in. Then, back in 2011, the Revised Waste Framework Directive took effect, and Regulation 35 superimposed the requirements that were previously in Section 34 of the EPA in relation to the types, the minimum requirements associated with a waste transfer note. Much of it is the same, but there are differences, such as the last three: the list of waste code currently used by the EWC, or the standard industry classification code, and also, lastly, the waste hierarchy declaration. These regulations also clarified that it was acceptable for the waste transfer note to be in electronic form. Fast forwarding to earlier on this year, we had the Waste Amendment Regulations 2014, and from the 6th of April, there are a number of minor changes, but it's worthwhile just focusing on them, or in particular one of them, because it did cause a certain amount of reaction in the trade press. And the first one was in relation to waste information, as opposed to waste transfer notes. Those regulations, up until that time, all waste that was transferred had to be associated with a waste transfer note. From the 6th of April, that is no longer the case. However, what is still required is that the waste information is associated with the waste. So exactly the same detailed requirements, but you don't have to have it covered in a separate waste transfer note. That was done by government as a deregulatory measure within England and Wales. The reason for that was that some businesses felt that they already had lots of the information required within a waste transfer note, but they were just on different pieces of paper and they didn't want to duplicate that. So government made that amendment. But in making that amendment, it was on the basis that the vast majority of industry over time will move to the electronic eDoc system. It was this sort of flexibility has been to hopefully look after those businesses, the small proportion, the 20% that decide maybe not to go to an electronic system. The regulations also made other changes. They added in more prescribed offences, notably the Scrap Metal Dealers Act, in relation to whether somebody could be a registered waste carrier. And they also overcame an omission in a previous set of regulations in relation to copy certificates, and also clarifying how many days' notice a business has before they need to be able to show us a waste carrier's licence. Both of those provisions were omitted, unfortunately, in a previous set of regulations, so they were just bringing us back into line. So that's the context, that's a bit of a background. What I want to do now is to move into eDoc. And if the technology works, and I'm sure it will, what we'll start is just show you a bit of an animated video.
Every business in the UK has a duty of care to deal responsibly with waste and keep a record of where it comes from and goes to. Last year, UK businesses produced an estimated 23 million waste transfer notes and stored approximately 50 million. Now, there's a new way to record waste transfers. eDoc, or Electronic Duty of Care, is the new way to create and store waste transfer notes electronically, and it will be free to use. eDoc allows you to create, share, review, edit, sign and store waste transfer notes online. Our new system can save your business time by reducing cumbersome administration. eDoc makes this time-saving add up, and ultimately that can save you money. eDoc can cut down on your business paper needs. Keeping your records secure online means that you won't have to store lots of paper in the office. eDoc delivers email notifications, helping you stay on top of reviewing, editing and signing waste transfer notes. Plus, you can view a record of who has performed various actions and when. eDoc allows you to create season tickets and include different waste types, containers and collection frequencies, and will tell you when your season ticket is about to expire. You can record individual waste transfers or upload multiple records via the web portal. Or you can make your own system talk directly to eDoc. You can retrieve your records quickly and easily, and there is an option to track simple waste movements and show the final fate of your waste. You can tailor the system to your business needs. eDoc allows you to have a variety of reports on your transfers at your fingertips. eDoc collects high-quality data, and you will be helping to create a more comprehensive picture of the UK's business waste than we've ever had before, all the while ensuring that your information is secure and confidential. eDoc will bring the way that businesses create, share, review, edit, sign and store waste transfer notes into the 21st century. Oh, and it's free.
Okay, so just to reinforce some of those sort of messages, as we've all heard, all UK businesses have that legal duty to dispose of or manage their waste responsibility. We now recognise that it isn't just waste transfer notes, it's waste information. It has to be completed for all waste transfers. And they need to be stored for a minimum of 2 years, and in situations relating to landfill, it's up to 6 years. So estimates of about 5 years ago, there was around 23 million waste transfer notes circulating the UK on a whole. So a lot of waste transfer notes. eDoc has been designed as a new UK-wide system to create, to share, to edit non-hazardous waste transfers. That's an important point. It's non-hazardous. It doesn't deal with consignment notes at the moment, but it does deal with all of the requirements across the whole of the UK. It is a voluntary system, but we believe it's the opportunity to transform the paper-based system and identify some of the benefits later on. Although I say it's voluntary, there are a number of businesses that are interested and feel that it should be made mandatory. And I guess if I was honest and I fast forwarded 5 years, I wouldn't be surprised if it was mandatory, at least in 1 or 2 nations in the UK. It is free. It is free now and it will be free in the future. The benefits, well, they're the obvious ones. It saves time and money. Clearly moving from a paper-based system to an electronic system provides huge efficiencies. It cuts down on paper. We know that for some companies, business is quite small, then maybe the number of pieces of paper aren't that huge, that significant. But for other businesses, waste management companies, brokers, the number of waste pieces of paper is enormous, and that shouldn't be discounted. It also has the ability to allow you as a business to have a greater understanding of what's happening to your waste. It allows you to track your waste, how much waste you're producing and where is it going. Fundamentally, for me as a regulator, it improves compliance. The duty of care is a self-regulatory system. Many of us will have seen waste transfer notes that are incomplete, that are filled out incorrectly, that are signed by Mickey Mouse and countersigned by Daffy Duck. All those sorts of situations do occur. eDoc encourages, forces true compliance in relation to the waste transfer notes. And for those businesses who are interested in their reputation, it has a huge benefit there. Also, it allows the collection of high-quality data. At the moment in the UK, probably every 2 to 3 months, there is a report that comes out that says one of the biggest gaps in UK waste understanding is around the actual data. How much waste is being produced? Where is it coming from? Where is it going to? eDoc has the ability to fill that gap. That's one of the reasons why all 4 governments are really keen about eDoc, because it will help inform them to make the right policies. It will help inform regulators to decide where it focuses its compliance activity. It will help local authorities to understand what type of infrastructure they need. It will obviously help businesses to make their business decisions. Just in terms of developing the system, we've worked very, very closely with industry. And we've taken what we call an agile approach. So from the very beginning, we've been listening, we've been working up beta versions, putting them out into industry to give us feedback and challenge, and then adapting. And this is one example of it. So you've got the picture on your right-hand side is a visualization of the eDoc. That's the big box at the bottom. And when we started the project, we thought there'd be 2 ways of interacting with eDoc. The first is through a web browser or a web portal. Ideal for small businesses. That's what exists at the moment. The other way was for large businesses through an API, an application programming interface, which is effectively a piece of software that allows 2 databases to talk to one another, because large businesses will have their own IT systems. What business came back to us and said is, that's great, but we want a third way. We want the in-between way. We want to be able to bulk upload large numbers of waste transfer notes, but without going to the full extent of an application programming interface. So that's what we've now got. We've got all 3 of those. So the system we've got is fit for purpose, and it does what industry have asked us. I'm not going to run through all of those key features of eDoc, but basically it does exactly what you'd expect an electronic waste management, waste transfer system to do. And that's what the videos were highlighting. But on top of that, because it's an electronic system, you get added benefits. So, for example, you receive automatic email notifications when there's an action. So it's helping you manage your workload. And if you use season tickets, and for some big businesses and waste management companies, you will produce hundreds of thousands, probably, of season tickets every year. And you get an email update notification to say this season ticket is due to expire in X number of days. You also get to see a log of actions, so you can see who's made changes to the waste transfer note, when they've occurred. That's really useful in terms of compliance. And you can also run all sorts of reports on the data. These are just some screenshots. Hopefully you'll be able to see it. It is very simple. That is, again, based on the feedback we've had. We don't want it to be overly complex. We don't want it dealing with carbon and all of those sorts of other elements. It should just replicate what the waste transfer note does. And as you can see, we've got drop-down boxes there. That's in relation to the types of container. We also have other drop-down menus, so you can have the EWC code, and it helps you fill out the correct EWC code, one of the most common areas of a waste transfer note that is incorrectly filled out. You also have on-screen tooltips, so there is no large user manual. It's intuitive, it's simple to use, and if you hover, as you'd expect, over a particular field, it will give you advice as to what it's asking for. It's also an example here of where you start to enter a business name. It has a predictive functionality. So if you start to type in Victoria, in this example, it will identify any businesses who are registered on the system with Victoria in it, and it will prompt them to you. Again, hopefully saving time. One of the great areas is in relation to reports and reporting. And this diagram shows you the different types of reports that you can get. So at the bottom, you've got the waste transfer notes. Let's just assume that's the pure data. You then go through the system will deduplicate that information, because obviously there'll be waste transfer notes basically relating to the same waste. So it deduplicates it, and then depending on the type of report, it will anonymize that data, because commercial confidentiality is very important. Some businesses don't want everybody to know what type of waste they are managing and who's it from. So if we go from the left-hand side and we look at business reports, there's two types of business report. There's a report for your business which has all of the details, and then there's an anonymized all waste data report that everybody has access to, but that's obviously at a much higher level. And then you've also got the ability to run waste tonnage reports or quarterly returns if you've got a permit. And then on the far right-hand side, you've got the data export, which is what governments use to build up the overall picture, the pure picture in terms of what's happening to waste in our countries. But again, that's anonymized. So even the UK governments don't have full access to data. And these are just examples of the types of reports that can run. And it'll allow you to, if you want, somebody asks you a question of how much waste wood do we produce, or what type of EWC code do we largely produce, or what facilities do we send our waste to, it will give you those sorts of answers. Two myths have built up in relation to eDoc, and I'd just like to sort of squash those. The first is in terms of data security. That was one of the first challenges the industry said. A lot of commercially sensitive information. If we want to use this, we want to be confident that everything's going to work. So it has what you'd expect. Secure login. The only people who can view the actual waste transfer note are the people associated with that waste transfer note. Nobody else can. I can't see it as a regulator, just those people. And as we've said, we use aggregated anonymization and aggregation to make sure that people aren't able to almost second guess which company is dealing with which type of waste. The second myth that existed or is built up was, what about the regulators? You lot are going to go out on a Friday afternoon and you're going to start fishing. You're going to look for all those small-scale errors and problems. That isn't what we're doing. So the position we've got is exactly the same as exists within a waste transfer note system. At the moment, the paper-based system, we don't have the automatic right to look at loads of waste transfer notes. We do have through enforcement notices, and that's what we replicate through the electronic system. So if we have a concern, we can issue an enforcement notice electronically, and you can then acknowledge it and say, yes, you can see those waste transfer notes, and you do that in a much more simpler way than obviously through a paper-based system. However, if you were to refuse as a business, then that's fair enough. Nevertheless, there are still those legal implications, just as if you refused under a legal paper notice. And then finally, just to give you some feedback about types of registered users and what they're saying, so Hillistrat, very significant waste management consultancy. For them, it's all about delivering commercial and environmental benefits. Crucially, it's about improved compliance. They deal with what I would view as some of their high-end customers, big retailers, where reputation is everything. eDoc improves their compliance for their own internal auditing purposes, for their customers' auditing purposes. They also recognise that it has the potential to provide improved data quality. FCC, which I know a colleague was mentioning earlier on, they're in the process of signing up and using it. Chris Griffiths, who's their technical manager, views it as an important milestone. Again, switching from the paper to the electronic. All the same things, cheaper, quicker, improving compliance. Their approach is that they are currently training their staff so that as and when other customers are interested, they can ask, can we use eDoc, to which the answer is yes. So it's not mandatory from their perspective that everybody will go on to eDoc, but it is an option that they're offering their customers. And then finally, CIWM. As we're here in RWM, thought I might as well mention them. They're an example of a small business. They don't produce much waste, but they're making use of eDoc with their contractors. And for them, one of the benefits was an unexpected one. All of a sudden, they've actually started paying more attention to their waste. They've started weighing their waste, and as a result, they've reduced the amount of waste that they actually produce on a weekly basis. And they are one of the examples of organisations that believe that government should seriously consider making eDoc mandatory. So, eDoc's live. It was launched in January 2014. It is simple. It is intuitive. If you need help, there is lots of help on the site. There's how-to videos, there's FAQs, everything that you would expect. There's even an example implementation plan, how to implement it within your business. So far, we've got 1,500 businesses registered. We've got over 12,000 transfers recorded. It's what we view as a slow burn. We see that continuing. At the end of this year, eDoc is being transferred in terms of ownership from the Environment Agency across to the 4 UK governments. And not only will they own it, but they will then continue to fund it.